Well, it is day 10 of my odyssey with the allogenic transplant. And so 10 days after I had the transplant, time has just flown. And wanted to catch up with my friends and prayer warriors and the supporters of the ministry of the Christian Research Institute. I have a little poem that my daughter, she drew me this beautiful picture that I just showed you that says, "When your endurance ends, God's grace begins." And how true that is. I have found time and time again that when my endurance ends, God's grace begins. And God's grace has been all sufficient. I was just in the exercise room. I got in an hour of exercise, and there was a lady who had gone through an autogenic transplant and failed it, and now she's doing CAR T-cell. And so she was asking me about my situation, and I told her that I was in day 10, and she looked at me, she said, "I cannot believe that you are walking on the treadmill like you're doing 10 days after your transplant." So once again, when your endurance ends, God's grace begins. So I think this is a function of God's grace and His goodness in my life. I had an opportunity to be a witness to the lady in the exercise room, and I was talking to my son John about how these just a few moments ago, about how God places you in circumstances and you don't really know exactly why, what God's up to. He could heal me in a millisecond apart from any need to go through what I'm going, but He's chosen to allow me to go through this process. And I shared with my son John one of my favorite poems. I've shared it often with people because it's so beautiful. I remember being in a restaurant and seeing it on a placemat and memorizing it. But it goes like this: my life is but a weaving between my Lord and me. I do not choose the colors. He weaveth steadily. Ofttimes he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget he sees the upper, and I the underside. Not till the loom is silent and the shuttles cease to fly will God unfurl the canvas and explain the reason why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hand as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned. So we see the underside of the tapestry, and a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us. Discordant knots and threads, but the tapestry God is painting is brilliant and beautiful. And that's why we can say as Christians, all things work together for good to those who love God and are the called according to His purposes. So I am going through this process. I'm looking towards the ending of it. The last 3 days I've had 4 transfusions for platelets. I bumped my head, and can't show you the back of my head, but I got a little bump there, and when you don't have platelets, you don't have the clotting ability and so forth. So I got quite a bump, but it's going down. And I was just trying to find a cord to plug in my phone, and I ended up putting a little knot in my head. But anyway, I've had 4 transfusions in 3 days, and I'm looking forward to getting out of the nadir. I have 11 and 12, day 11 and 12. That's still sort of the low spot in the road, as it were. But I would tell you, as this lady told me in the gym, it is absolutely amazing that I'm able to do what I'm able to do. And again, that is not a function of my endurance. It's a function of God's grace. So I want to encourage all of you to continue to live your lives in such a way that you have a realization that everything that comes into your life comes from the hand of God. God has a purpose in it. Even our Lord Jesus Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, facing the crucifixions, asked the Lord to let the cup pass by. But then Jesus said, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. And Christ's crucifixion, of course, is the redemption of the world. In some ways, suffering and difficult times can be used for the redemption of the world as well. There's a person that gave me, in fact, I was going to read it to you, but it's on my phone, so I can't do that while I'm doing the video. But essentially, a person sent in a testimony saying that she was in a hospital bed just as I am right now, and someone gave her a copy of Christianity in Crisis, and she said it saved her life because she had based her life on a false sense of security based on the word of faith movement. Faith is a force, words are the containers of the force, and through the force of faith one can create their own reality. And she said it nearly cost her life, but in the hospital she got a copy of my book, Christianity in Crisis, and that turned her around on a different path. And so she testified to God using that book. And she said it saved her life physically, if not her theology spiritually. So that was an encouraging testimony to me, and I hope I've been somewhat of an encouragement to you with this video and the continuing stream of videos as I go through this process of the allogenic transplant. Once again, I want to thank all of you for your prayers, for your support. I have sores in my mouth, so I'm kind of having a hard time speaking, but and I'm probably looking increasingly gross, but that's just part of the process. But again, thank you for your prayers and for your support and for your encouragement along the way. May God richly bless and use you for His glory and for the extension of His kingdom. So long for now.